Here's a startling paradox. The more content we consume, the less we realize exactly how our opinions are being molded. Despite having the world's information at our fingertips, we find ourselves adopting viewpoints that seem entirely our own until we dig deeper. According to a 2022 study published in Media Psychology, individuals exposed to repeated news narratives were 33% more likely to accept unverified claims as facts. This paradox challenges our fundamental sense of autonomy. Are we consciously deciding our beliefs, or are media outlets doing it for us? It's a question that stings, because no one wants to admit they're being influenced without realizing it. In this video, we'll uncover the most pervasive manipulation techniques of 2025, strategies so seamlessly integrated that they're virtually invisible. By the end, you may wonder whether even your strongest convictions might be borrowed from carefully orchestrated messaging. But don't worry, we won't stop at a mere gotcha moment. We'll arm you with recognized psychological insights to help you see through the illusions. Right now, we're merely brushing the surface, hinting at the depth of control modern media wields. So if you feel that tingle of unease, hold on to it, because it means you're about to see what's really going on behind the curtain. Now imagine tuning into breaking news and noticing repeated catchphrases: urgent crisis, breaking threat, or vital update. Over time, these phrases start to register as universal truths. Your reaction speed intensifies, your critical thinking takes a back seat, and your emotional sensors skyrocket. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, in his seminal work, Thinking Fast and Slow, 2011, explains that repeated exposures to the same idea can trigger cognitive ease, making you more willing to accept it without scrutiny. Now pair that with calculated emotional triggers, like images of devastation or tearful interviews, and you've got a formula for bypassing logic. It's not just about sensationalizing events, it's about generating a potent mix of urgency and empathy that keeps you hooked. This is the essence of repetition mixed with emotional manipulation. But there's more. Studies from the University of Amsterdam confirm that once individuals form an impression of a situation, particularly one shaped by fear or empathy, they resist contrary evidence, even if it's robust. Vandermeer and Hameliers, 2019. Isn't that remarkable? As you wonder whether you've fallen prey to such tactics, keep in mind that these methods are subtle, so subtle that you might not consciously recognize them. Stay with us as we next delve into why contradictory facts sometimes strengthen an existing bias, rather than dispel it. Here's where things get especially intriguing. Media organizations often know that contradictory data can paradoxically reinforce people's beliefs. The mind craves consistency, and when you encounter stats that clash with your own viewpoint, you might latch on to any tiny flaw or tangential alignment that reaffirms your original stance. A 2020 meta-analysis in the journal Political Psychology termed this the backfire effect. They found that when individuals perceive their core identities, political, social, or cultural, to be threatened, the introduction of contradictory evidence doesn't weaken their stance. Instead, it can harden it. Why would media exploit this? Because conflict drives engagement. Headlines like "Experts disagree on climate crisis" or "Conflicting views on economic policy" attract more clicks. As humans, we're drawn to argument, to the spectacle of debate. But once you're emotionally engaged, you're more prone to be manipulated by subtle editorial cues, a dismissive tone toward one expert, or a consciously favorable framing of another. This contradiction-laced approach disrupts your pattern of confident reasoning. The result? You keep watching to resolve the tension, never realizing the storyline is orchestrated. Next, we'll explore how personal connections and emotional resonance can overshadow factual accuracy, forming the bedrock of emotional anchors that hold your attention. Let's talk about how human stories often overshadow raw data. We cling to narratives about tragedy or triumph, empathizing with a single individual's experience more intensely than we empathize with thousands who share the same fate. This is sometimes called the identifiable victim effect, backed by research from the University of Oregon, Small, Lowenstein, and Slovic, 2007. When media coverage fixates on one person's hardship, perhaps a family hit hard by unemployment, it evokes a surge of empathy that a mere statistic never could. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with highlighting personal stories. Empathy fuels social cohesion and understanding. But how does it morph into manipulation? By leveraging these emotional anchors to neglect broader contexts. A malignant disease with a certain survival rate might be presented through the lens of a single survivor's tearful struggle, prompting donations, views, or political support. Yet the broader discussion, like why healthcare access remains limited or how policies could be improved, may remain unaddressed. That's how a gripping emotional anchor can warp our sense of proportion. When you feel an emotional punch, your guard lowers, and your trust in the source often grows. We now move forward to dissect the slow but profound layering of evidence that cements these manipulated narratives in your psyche, building momentum toward acceptance. Up to this point, we've touched on repetition, emotional hooks, conflict, and personal narratives. Now let's see how these elements converge into what scholars call a compounding agenda, the deliberate accumulation of stories that guide the audience's focus. The agenda-setting theory, famously introduced by McCombs and Shaw, 1972, states that media don't just tell us what to think, they tell us what to think about. This works by saturating the airwaves or social feeds with consistent themes. Suppose you've seen 5 articles about a potential economic meltdown, each framed differently. One highlights government mismanagement, another underscores corporate greed, a third showcases public unrest, and so forth. Over time, you not only conclude that the economy is in peril, you also align your mental spotlight with the presented angles. When another topic tries to raise its head, maybe a breakthrough in renewable energy, it struggles to gain your attention because your mind is already primed to focus on that meltdown scenario. By the time you finish doom scrolling or channel hopping, your worldview tilts toward gloom. This multi-layered technique is subtle yet powerful. It builds a momentum of belief that's increasingly resistant to being undone by singular pieces of contrary evidence. Next, we'll explore how these entwined narratives affect our future, bridging the gap between seemingly unrelated fields and setting the stage for broader societal shifts. What's particularly fascinating is how these manipulation strategies affect not just journalism or politics, but fields stretching from economics to neuroscience. Consider digital platforms. Algorithms refined by data scientists push personalized content flows, effectively creating echo chambers that intensify each viewer's existing beliefs. That's not an accident. It's part of a feedback loop designed to keep you engaged by reinforcing ideas you already find comforting or entertaining. This ties into the phenomenon known as algorithmic reinforcement, Pariser, 2011. The ramifications go beyond personal opinion. Traders might make stock decisions based on manipulated consumer sentiment. Health professionals might face an onslaught of misinformation that complicates patient care. Even academic research isn't free from these influences. Certain studies get more media coverage, leading to increased funding in those areas, while others remain overlooked. These cross-pollinating consequences underscore that media manipulation isn't relegated to fleeting headlines. It shapes tangible outcomes in research, policy, and resource allocation. The big question is, where does it all lead? Does the unstoppable flow of curated content, fear-mongering, and emotional triggers converge into a fully controlled society? Or will new waves of media literacy dismantle the illusions? In the final part, we invite you to reflect critically on these queries and share your perspective. Now that we've traversed the layers of repetition, framing, emotional anchors, and algorithmic biases, it's time to ask yourself, can you really trust your perceptions of world events? If the data can be spun and your emotions can be triggered without your awareness, how do you maintain a stable worldview? One step is fostering scientific skepticism. Test claims against established evidence, read multiple sources, and understand the biases each platform might harbor. Another is to elevate media literacy in educational systems, ensuring that future generations know how to verify headlines, interpret statistics, and approach controversies. So, the challenge isn't just about spotting manipulative headlines, it's about cultivating an ongoing state of critical reflection. This is where you come in. Are you willing to question and explore beyond the curated feeds? By doing so, you join a growing community committed to intellectual rigor and transparency. Feel free to share your experiences or insights in the comments. Let's keep this conversation alive. Remember, the future of informed citizenship depends on our collective willingness to dissect and discuss the narratives shaping our world. The next step is yours.